As soon as your company is established, you may immediately want to obtain a long-term permit to stay and do business in the UAE. But apart from that, to grow your business, you may also want to hire a manager or a certain number of employees and provide them with long-term permits too. As we already mentioned, these long-term permits would be UAE Resident Visas that are usually issued to business owners for 3 years and for 2 or also 3 years to employees. The number of resident visas you as a business owner can apply for is limited. This is where it is a high time to introduce such term as a visa quota. Remember, as long as you have a company, you are subject to a visa quota. In other words, there is always a certain number of resident visas you can apply for. To be able to structure a business properly and plan recruitment process, you must know exactly how this visa quota is calculated and how you can increase it should your company grow very fast, requiring significant additions to a team. In this chapter, we'll have a closer look at a visa quota subject, and we will discuss all important facts to provide a complete and trouble-free guide with respect to visa quotas for a company in the UAE. The visa quota, or the number of allowed resident visas, firstly depends on the size of your office space. Generally, visa quota is calculated based on the number of square meters assigned to each person sponsored by the company. The basic requirement for companies who choose to use physical office space is approximately 9 square meters per person. You may want to rent a warehouse instead of a physical office. What's then, you may ask? In this case scenario, a different visa quota calculation principle shall apply. If your business carries out its functions renting a warehouse, a larger space per person would be required, which might be well around 15 square meters per person. Therefore, if you want to have 10 people working in your office, then the space should be of at least 90 square meters. If, however, you need to recruit 10 people to work in a warehouse, then the space should comprise of approximately 150 square meters. Now that you know what the visa quota is and that you require a working space of a certain size to be able to employ more people, it is the right time to look at different types of companies in the UAE and learn how their visa quotas are calculated. As we discussed it earlier, there are local companies, companies in free zones, and offshore companies. Since offshore companies do not have any physical presence in the UAE, they also do not allow you to apply for resident visas. So let's exclude them, and we will focus our discussion on free zone and mainland companies only, as the rules with regards to visa quota there vary. Shall we start with the free zone then? Let's try. Do you remember the second chapter of the course? We discussed there the first feature of free zones, which is they allow to avail from flexi facility or a flexi desk, which is even not a full-time working space, but rather a chair and a desk in a business center for use up to 5 to 6 hours per week. Such option doesn't exist in the mainland, so if you choose the FlexiDesk office option for a business, it already comes with a specific visa quota. This specific visa quota varies from one free zone to another. To give an idea, the Dubai Multi-Commodities Center, DMCC, allows up to a maximum of 3 visas for the FlexiDesk option. Al Quwain Free Trade Zone can provide from 0 up to 2 or 3 visas depending on the package you choose and the activities you choose. And Fujairah Creative City or Sharjah Media City can even support you with a 6 visa quota. Hence, the number of resident visas you would be able to apply for in a free zone having rented a FlexiDesk would depend on your choice of a particular free zone. Now let's pretend that you rented a FlexiDesk in Fujairah Creative City, applied for a resident visa and hired 2 assistants for whom the remaining visa quota was issued. And then suddenly you find out you need to expand and you require additional visas. In this case, you have 2 options how to solve the matter. One would be to apply for a higher number of visas, as Fujairah Creative City offers a company package with 6 resident visas and with no need for physical office space. The other one would be to move to a physical office space which would be large enough to accommodate all employees, approximately 54 square meters. As such, planning your company formation process, pay attention to the visa quota assigned to each package. Free zones offer, for example, packages with no visa quota at a minimum cost, then with 1, then 2, then 3, and so up to 6 with FlexiDesk or Flexi Office. But the number of visas for each package and the maximum with FlexiDesk rent is always determined by each free zone authority individually. And this is where another important thing you need to bear in mind comes. Although all free zone authorities allow for the upgrade of registration packages, some of them do not accept downgrades. Therefore, remember to ask this when placing your query with a free zone authority. Now let's go back to a local company. As we mentioned before, in this case you cannot avail of flexi facilities and you need to rent a physical office space no matter what. As such, visa quota is always calculated based on the size of the rented commercial property. But what if the half of your office are salespeople, which is often the case in real estate industry or event management, and they almost never stay in the office, and you extremely need additional administrative staff, but extra office space is not required because you have it? What to do then? In this case, you will need to apply for visa quota increase. To complete the process successfully, you will need to provide a sufficient reason for your request, as we just did it in the example with salespeople. It is also important to know and remember that such applications are reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and they would be subject to approval. We have just reviewed with you the subject of visa quotas and how they are calculated. Another important thing most people are not aware of is visa allocation mechanism. This is rather applicable to free zones in those cases where you rent a flexi desk or flexi office. What do we mean? If a company opted for a company registration package with flexi desk rent and a quota of 2 visas, in some free zones it is mandatory for those 2 visas to belong to either shareholders or to a shareholder and a manager. To further clarify, let us take an example. Say you are the owner of a company where you are also a director and a manager. So all 3 positions are taken by you. You know that you have 2 visa quota and you used only 1, so you decided to hire an assistant. But at the moment you tried to apply, you learned that you would be not able to submit your request unless you either appoint the employee as a manager or as the second shareholder, or you rent a physical office space of the appropriate size. Another example would be when you work at a company in the UAE and you have a resident visa from the company. Then you register your company and you do not use any visa quota at all. The time comes when you need an assistant, and you learned that you cannot hire him or her since 2 visas can be distributed between the shareholder and the manager only. Since you are the shareholder and the manager in a company and you have your own resident visa, you would not be able to use the 2 quotas at all, unless you rent an office space or appoint future assistant at least as a manager. So what do you take from this example? 2 things. Ask how visa quota is allocated in the free zone you have a particular interest in. Many of free zones are very flexible in this regard, and you can either use quota for yourself and employees or for employees only. Still, there are cases where there is no flexibility at all. You should better know it earlier than later. If you look at local companies now, the visa quota allocation process works differently for them. As soon as your mainland company is formed, you need to apply for a visa quota with the Ministry of Labor. You literally submit a list containing detailed information about the future number of employees, their positions and gender. Request for visa quota allocation is associated with a certain fee. What you should know here is that if in the future you want to add new positions, or instead of male workers you want to recruit women, you will need to cancel first the previous quota and apply for the new one, incurring relevant fees again. So think carefully when applying and plan everything accordingly, as this will help you to minimize your business expenses in the future. We tried our best in providing you with the wide-ranging aspects relating to visa quota and visa allocation. Hope you enjoyed the topic, and we invite you to further explore the resident visa topic in the coming chapter.